Imagine this, a cold, windy afternoon in a forgotten alleyway of a small town where no one really stops to look around anymore. The kind of place where people keep their heads down, rushing past life's quiet tragedies. And there she was, barely 17, thin jacket wrapped tight around her, clutching her last 2 coins so hard they left imprints on her palm. She hadn't eaten all day. Her shoes had holes in them. And the world? It didn't care. But then, a faint whimper cut through the wind. A sound so soft, most would have ignored it. But not her. That one tiny cry led her to something she never expected, something that would change her life forever. A trembling, mud-covered puppy hidden behind a dumpster, eyes wide with pain and fear. And right then, she made a decision. With everything she had left, just those 2 coins, she gave up her shot at a meal to save a life. But what she didn't know was who that puppy really belonged to and what that would mean for her future. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why should I care? Why should I stay and watch? And honestly, that's fair. But listen, this isn't just another broke girl saves puppy story. This is about raw humanity, about doing the right thing when no one is watching, about how one choice, made with love and selflessness, can unlock something no one saw coming. In the next few minutes, you're going to see how that single act of kindness led to a chain of events so unexpected, even she couldn't believe what happened next. And yeah, I promise, we will get to the owner. You will find out exactly who he is and why that puppy was out there alone. But more importantly, you'll understand what this girl discovered about herself and about life. Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever made a decision with your heart when your head told you it was the wrong one? Have you ever put someone or something else's needs above your own just because it felt right? If yes, you'll see a piece of yourself in this story. And if not, well, you might just walk away seeing the world a little differently. We're not just here to entertain. This is about connection, about heart, about real emotions. You'll feel frustration. You'll feel warmth. You'll probably be angry at the system, and you might even cry. But more than anything, you're going to feel hooked because deep down, this story touches that part of you that still believes in good things happening to good people, even when life seems totally unfair. So stay with me. Don't click away. If you leave now, you'll miss the twist, the real reason that puppy was out there. You'll miss the moment when everything shifted, when the girl who had nothing was suddenly at the center of something so huge, it went viral. That's right, this story didn't just end in the alley. It exploded online. People across the country tuned in. Influencers reposted it. Celebrities took notice. But more on that later. For now, all you need to know is that this girl had no idea that her smallest act of compassion would lead her into the arms of someone she never imagined meeting, someone powerful, wealthy, and mysteriously tied to her past. You're going to meet her soon. Her name's Ellie. And trust me, once you hear her voice, you'll never forget it. She's not some made-up character. She's inspired by thousands of young women struggling every day, invisible to the world but carrying the weight of it on their shoulders. And the puppy? He's not just a dog. He becomes the link between pain and purpose. The story you're about to watch unpacks mental health, homelessness, lost family, identity, and above all, hope. It's trending because it's real. It's the kind of story that lives in the comments section, that starts conversations, that makes you pause your scroll and think, what if that were me? Right now, you're at the edge of something beautiful. I want you to feel that chill of curiosity crawl up your spine. I want your heart to ask, what happened next? And that's exactly where I'm going to leave you for now. Because just when Ellie thought things couldn't get any worse, that's when she heard footsteps. Not just any footsteps. Measured, deliberate, and oddly familiar. And when she looked up, the man standing in front of her wasn't a stranger at all. At least, not to the puppy. His reaction changed everything. But who he really was, that is what you're about to find out. Ellie hadn't meant to end up on the streets. Nobody ever does. But life doesn't always ask for permission before taking a hard left. Just 6 months earlier, she was a senior in high school, dreaming of studying veterinary medicine. She had this quiet passion for animals, always the one to sneak snacks to the stray cats behind the cafeteria, always the first to volunteer at the local shelter. Her mom used to say she was born with a heart too big for this world. But then her mom got sick, and everything unraveled faster than she could hold it together. Medical bills piled up. The eviction notice came too soon. By the time her mom passed away, Ellie had no home, no relatives to turn to, and no one who cared enough to look past the worn hoodie and tired eyes. Still, she kept going, taking odd jobs, sleeping in a broken-down car when she had it, on benches when she didn't. The only thing she held on to was a tiny silver locket, her mom's, and the belief that maybe, just maybe, something good was still out there. That's what made that moment in the alley so powerful. Because for once, she wasn't the one being rescued, she was the one doing the saving. The puppy was a mess, matted fur, limping on one paw, a deep cut on its hind leg, and terrified of every movement. Ellie used the last of her change to buy a can of dog food and gauze from a dollar store nearby. She named him Max on the spot. And as she sat there, cradling him in her lap under a flickering streetlight, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Purpose. But she also knew this wasn't normal. Max was too clean under the dirt, too well-fed despite the wound. There was a faint outline of a collar mark around his neck, but no ID. He didn't act like a stray. And the way he looked toward the street, like he was waiting for someone, it gnawed at her. Over the next few days, Ellie and Max became inseparable. She scouted every shelter, every corner, asking around, posting on neighborhood apps and community boards using borrowed Wi-Fi. But no one came forward. No missing dog signs. No microchip. Nothing. That alone was strange, but what really started raising flags was the way people reacted to the dog. One afternoon, as Ellie sat on the curb outside a church with Max curled beside her, a man in a black SUV slowed down and just stared. Didn't say a word. Didn't smile. Just looked. Then drove off. It happened again 2 days later. Different car. Same look. It started feeling less like coincidence and more like surveillance. But why would anyone care this much about a stray? Meanwhile, Ellie's story with Max was gaining attention on social media. A local vlogger spotted them and filmed a short clip, "Homeless teen uses last coins to save injured dog." It blew up overnight. Hashtags like #RealLifeHero, #StrayToSaved, and #EllieandMax started trending on TikTok. People were moved by her act of kindness. Some even started sending money and supplies through a volunteer who found her. But as the praise poured in, so did something else. Fear. The more attention Ellie got, the more she felt like she was being watched. Not just by strangers online, but in real life. One evening, a woman approached her, pretending to be from an animal rescue. She had professional gear and a clipboard. She asked too many questions. When Ellie refused to hand Max over, the woman's smile vanished. She muttered something under her breath and walked off quickly, disappearing into a waiting car. That's when Ellie knew this wasn't just about a dog. The mystery deepened when Max led her one night, tugging her by instinct through streets she'd never walked. They ended up in front of a gated estate on the edge of town, the kind of place with security cameras, trimmed hedges, and a sense of old money. Max started barking, not out of fear, but recognition. And then the front porch light flicked on. A tall man stepped out, froze when he saw Max, and his entire face changed. He dropped what he was holding and whispered something Ellie couldn't hear. That was the same man who appeared in the alley, the one who knew Max's name, without being told. But instead of rushing forward or thanking her, he backed away, almost like he was afraid. That reaction stayed with her. It wasn't relief, it was shock. Like Max wasn't supposed to be alive. From that night on, things got stranger. Someone started leaving envelopes near her sleeping spots. No name, just cash. Then came the note, typed, not handwritten. He wasn't meant to be found. Let it go. Ellie didn't let it go. She couldn't. Not after everything. She started digging, asking questions about the estate, about the man. Turns out, he was a tech mogul, rumored to be reclusive, grieving the recent loss of his teenage son. His name was Carter Vaughn, and his family had once made headlines after a kidnapping scandal a few years back involving corporate espionage, ransom threats, and hush money. The case had been buried. No charges were filed. But there were whispers that something had gone horribly wrong. That's when it hit Ellie. What if Max wasn't just a pet? What if he had been part of something bigger, something dark? Everywhere she turned, someone tried to stop her. Police told her to move along. One of the shelters suddenly claimed they couldn't accept Max for safety reasons. Her story was removed from a local subreddit with no explanation. But the more resistance she faced, the more she knew she was onto something real. She began keeping notes, voice recordings, even video clips using an old phone donated by a kind stranger. Her followers grew. People started demanding her stories, rumors, possible sightings of Max months before. That's when she discovered the name Hera Project. It sounded like something out of a sci-fi thriller, but it kept showing up in comments and emails, linked to the Vaughn estate, to hidden labs, to lost pets that came back different. Ellie had no clue how deep this would go. She just wanted to do the right thing. But now, she was tangled in something far beyond what she could have imagined. Something involving secrets people were desperate to keep hidden. And Max? He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a key. A key to whatever secrets were buried in Carter Vaughn's past. But with every clue Ellie found, the danger grew. She was no longer just a broke girl with a kind heart. She was a target. And then, one night, just as she was about to upload a video revealing everything she had learned so far, her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. She hesitated. Answered. A voice, calm, male, slightly distorted, spoke just 7 words. You've gone far enough. Stop or disappear. Ellie sat frozen on the park bench, heart hammering as the voice from the phone echoed in her ears. It was the kind of threat you don't just ignore, the kind that makes you feel like someone is standing behind you watching. She looked around, trying to spot anything unusual, but the street was quiet, too quiet for that time of night. Max stood close, growling low as if he sensed something she couldn't. She knew then this wasn't some random scare tactic. Someone had been tracking her every move, probably long before she realized it.
But why?
Why was it so important that she forget about Max's past? What was everyone so desperate to keep buried? That call changed something in her. She wasn't just scared anymore. She was furious. And that fury sparked a new resolve. Whatever secret they were hiding, she was going to expose it, no matter what it cost. The next morning, Ellie went to the one place she hoped still had answers, the Vaughn estate. But this time, she didn't approach the front gates. She circled around, finding a break in the fencing behind a cluster of trees. It was reckless, maybe even stupid, but she needed to see it for herself. She made her way through the overgrown garden path, Max close behind. The grounds were eerily silent, like no one had been living there for weeks. She crept toward the back of the house and peered through a window. What she saw chilled her. Inside the grand living room was Carter Vaughn, pacing back and forth, talking to a woman Ellie didn't recognize. She was tall, striking, dressed in dark gray. The two of them weren't just talking, they were arguing. Carter slammed something on the table, shouting words Ellie couldn't hear. Then the woman handed him a file. He looked at it, froze, then stormed out. The woman looked directly at the window for a split second. Ellie ducked. She didn't know if she'd been seen, but it didn't matter. That woman's presence changed everything. That woman, she would learn later, was Dr. Evelyn Granger, a behavioral scientist and former consultant for the military. Her name came up in several whistleblower reports linked to the Hera Project. But most of those reports were redacted or mysteriously deleted from public forums. Still, Ellie kept digging. With help from a few online activists who followed her growing story under the tag #WhoIsMax, she uncovered fragments of information pointing to a controversial experiment involving emotional bonding between humans and genetically modified animals. The goal? To create hyper-loyal, emotional support animals for high-risk trauma victims, specifically children of high-profile political and corporate leaders. The catch? These animals weren't just trained. They were enhanced. biotech, neural mapping, even low-level AI implants. It sounded like conspiracy theory junk, but the deeper she went, the more credible the sources became.
And
Suddenly, things made sense in a terrifying new way. Max wasn't just a lost dog. He was a product of something that should have never existed in the first place. The Vaughns had apparently enrolled their son, Tyler, in the program during a particularly difficult time after a failed kidnapping attempt. Max was assigned to him. But then Tyler died. Or so the story went. Some reports suggested the boy had disappeared under unclear circumstances. That's when Max was declared missing too. It was all hushed up, spun into a narrative of grief and retreat. But now Ellie had proof that Max survived, and he wasn't supposed to. That alone explained the sudden interest from powerful people, the strange followers, the envelopes, and especially the call. But the most disturbing part? Max had started behaving differently. Not dangerously, but strangely aware, like he could understand conversations far more than a normal dog should. He reacted to names, places, even locations she hadn't said out loud. It was like he remembered more than he should. One night, while hiding out in a community center storage room with Max curled beside her, Ellie connected the final dots. She reviewed old footage from her phone, freezing frame by frame on a blurry image of a tattoo visible on Dr. Granger's wrist as she handed Carter the file. It matched a symbol posted anonymously on an underground Reddit thread about experimental labs operating in private estates under nonprofit covers. That was when she realized something big. Max wasn't the only one. There were others. Other animals. Other subjects. And maybe other kids like Tyler who had been part of the Hera trials. Suddenly, Ellie wasn't just protecting a dog. She was holding a live witness to something explosive, something that could shatter reputations and bury companies. She tried uploading what she had, documents, video, voice notes, but every time, the posts were removed, flagged for violating community guidelines. It was clear someone had pull, not just with tech platforms, but possibly law enforcement too. She was outmatched. And then came the twist she didn't see coming. One of her followers, someone who'd been quietly helping her from the beginning, going by the handle @MirrorEcho, sent her a voice message. A teen boy's voice, shaky and emotional. Ellie, Max isn't just part of the program.
he remembers me.
I think I'm Tyler Vaughn. The voice broke off. Static. Silence. Ellie dropped the phone. That wasn't possible. Tyler Vaughn had been declared dead. Newspapers, obituaries, foundation in his name. The whole world believed it. But if that voice was real, if it truly was him, then everything was a lie. The twist wasn't that Max was the key. It was that the story wasn't about the dog at all. It was about a boy hidden away, erased from public memory, possibly for knowing too much, and Max had escaped to find help the only way he knew how. Through love. Through Ellie. Now Ellie was at the center of a storm she couldn't control. Billionaires, biotech conspiracies, hidden labs, and now a boy who wasn't supposed to exist. The question wasn't just who Max belonged to anymore. It was why someone had gone to such lengths to make sure he was never found, and what they were willing to do now that he had been. Ellie had to make a choice. Keep running and stay safe, or risk everything to get the truth out. She looked at Max, who stared up at her with eyes that felt too deep, too knowing. He wagged his tail once, then stepped toward the door. Outside, headlights cut through the dark. And someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. What happened when Ellie opened that door? You'll have to wait and see. Ellie stood completely still, staring at the door like it might explode. The knocking came again, slow, deliberate, calm. Max didn't bark, didn't growl. He just stood there, rigid, as if he recognized who was on the other side. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she stepped forward, each movement heavy with uncertainty. She reached for the knob, her mind racing with every possible scenario: government agents, private security, maybe even Carter Vaughn himself. But nothing could have prepared her for what she saw when the door creaked open. There, standing in the dim glow of the hallway light, was the same boy from the voice message. Pale, wide-eyed, and trembling. He looked about her age, maybe a little younger, with hair that had grown wild and uneven, as if he'd been living off-grid for a long time. He stepped inside slowly, his eyes locked on Max. And Max, he didn't just recognize him. He launched forward in a frenzy of emotion, tail whipping like a helicopter blade, whimpering and pressing himself against the boy's legs. That reunion, it was undeniable.
Raw. Real.
Tears welled in the boy's eyes as he dropped to his knees, hugging Max, so tight it looked like he might never let go. That was the moment Ellie knew. This was Tyler Vaughn.
Alive.
The world tilted under her feet. Tyler's voice cracked as he whispered, "They told me he didn't make it. That he failed the training. That he'd been put down." He looked up, his eyes full of years of pain and silence. "But I knew they were lying." Ellie knelt beside him, heart thudding with both awe and dread. She asked the only question that mattered now. Why would they fake your death? Tyler looked at her, hesitating. "Because I found out what the project was really for." What followed wasn't a theory. It wasn't a Reddit rabbit hole or an internet rumor. Tyler laid out everything, how the Hera project started as therapy for trauma-exposed youth, but how it evolved into something else. A private weaponized emotional AI trial, where high-value children were paired with engineered animals meant to imprint on them and control their stress responses, emotions, even behaviors. When Tyler started asking questions, things went sideways. One night, he was sedated. When he woke up, he was no longer Tyler Vaughn, he was a ghost, hidden away in a secured facility with other kids who had failed compliance. But somehow he escaped. And Max? Max was more than a pet. He had been hard-coded to seek out help when Tyler's neural imprint went offline. Tyler never stopped believing Max would come for him, and Max never stopped looking. Ellie was overwhelmed. Every part of her wanted to celebrate that they'd found each other, that the truth was finally out. But the world outside that door wasn't going to let this end quietly. She knew it the second she spotted the black SUV parked half a block down. They were being watched. They had been for days. Tyler saw it too. He looked at her, serious and scared. "We have one shot at this. There's a contact, someone in DC, who's been waiting for confirmation I was alive. If we can get there, they'll protect us. But we have to move now." Ellie didn't hesitate. She grabbed her bag, stuffed it with the notes and files she'd gathered, and followed Tyler and Max into the night. The next 48 hours were a blur of bus stations, back roads, and whispered names. With the help of her growing online community, they avoided checkpoints, crossed state lines, and eventually made it to a small safe house outside DC, run by a former investigative journalist named Leo. He'd been tracking the Hera project for years, but had never found a living witness until now. With Tyler's testimony, Max's behavior patterns, and Ellie's digital footprint, they compiled a file so damning, so airtight, that even the most protected figures couldn't spin it. Leo leaked it all to multiple outlets at once. #HeraFiles started trending within minutes on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Top creators, truth seekers, and major news networks picked it up. Ellie's name went viral again, but this time not just as a girl who saved a dog, but as a girl who uncovered one of the darkest cover-ups of the decade. Within days, the fallout began. Carter Vaughn was brought in for questioning. Dr. Evelyn Granger disappeared, rumored to be hiding in another country. Several biotech companies lost billions overnight. Congress opened an official investigation, but none of that compared to the public response. People weren't just angry, they were heartbroken. The betrayal hit deep. Parents, teachers, animal rights advocates, everyone wanted answers. And through it all, Ellie stayed beside Tyler and Max. They testified. They shared their stories. And when a tech company offered Ellie a scholarship to any university of her choice for her courage and advocacy, she finally saw a future for herself that didn't begin and end with survival. But just when it seemed the story had reached its end, something happened that no one saw coming. One rainy morning, Ellie received a package. No name, no return address. Inside was a small data chip and a letter that simply read, "Max was not the first.
And he will not be the last."
There's more. Much more." She looked at Tyler. He nodded slowly, understanding what this meant. The fight wasn't over. The truth they exposed was just one piece of something even bigger. Something global. Something still operating in the shadows. Ellie uploaded one final video, raw, real, unscripted. She spoke directly to the camera, to everyone who'd been with her since that night in the alley. She told them the truth. The whole truth. Not just about Max or Tyler or the project, but about what it means to do the right thing when the world tells you to look away. Her words were simple, but they cut deep. I was just a broke girl with nothing. But I had a heart. And that was enough. If you ever wonder whether you can make a difference, remember this story. And remember that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can bring down the biggest lies. Max barked once, as if to agree. And somewhere on a screen, someone watched with a tight jaw and narrowed eyes, another piece of the puzzle waiting to be found. The story may have ended, but the truth? It had just begun.